Melvin. Thank you. This is Board Member Doyle returning from lunch. We are still in executive session. And now we will be transitioning to open session. So we'll be making the motion and then Rachel will need a moment to convert, right? To open session.
We are converting. This is the conversion.
We are in open session? Okay, thank you. So I, Board Member Doyle, move to resume open session at 1:03 p.m.
Member Chin, second. Member Beeman, yes. Member DeBarmore, yes. Member Hall, yes. Member Henning, yes.
Member Joyce, yes?
Member Patel, yes. Member Vipperman, yes.
Know that we had some members of the public that were outside waiting. Can a staff member please go out and make sure that they know we are in open session?
Did we switch the signs on the door?
We need to move. Yeah, it's already switched.
We will now begin the November rulemaking hearing report with staff member Melvin. That is mailing number B as in Bravo in your packets. I turn it over to staff member Melvin.
Thank you, Staff Member Melvin. Again, this is mailing B. Board members Chin and Board Member Joyce and staff members Davis, Efremoff, Jamal Fox, Hennigan, and Melvin attended the rulemaking hearing. 13 people joined the public call to listen. One person signed up to provide oral testimony. One person did provide oral testimony during the hearing. We received 18 written comments during the open comment period from October 20th through November 21st, and they were provided to the board in their entirety. On October 20th, 2023, I emailed the rulemaking hearing public notice via GovDelivery to 4,131 rules subscribers or interested parties and to 23,179 licensees and registrants. So that email went out to 27,310 total subscribers. Interested parties were invited to sign up to provide oral testimony during the virtual hearing. Encouraged to email written comments to pharmacy.rulemaking@bop.oregon.gov and had an opportunity to simply call in and listen to the hearing. Back to you, President Doyle, for board discussion.
Member Doyle, thank you for your presentation. I will now go around to see if there are any board comments or feedback with regards to that report and information therein. We begin with Board Member DeBarmore.
Board Member DeBarmore, no, I don't have any comment.
Member Joyce.
Board Member Joyce, just want to thank you for all the comments, and I do read each one. And I do appreciate them, and we'll be addressing them hopefully today or tomorrow. Thank you.
Board Member Hall.
Member Hall, no comments.
I, Board Member Doyle, appreciates the feedback and understanding the perspectives of many different types of stakeholders in our communities. Member Chin.
Member Chin, no comment.
Member Patel.
Board Member Patel, yeah, we received like about 70 pages of comments. We have a lot more works to do. And I hear all the licenses comments. I hear that loud and clear, and I go through those comments too. And we'll consider that when we look at this. Thank you.
Member Beeman.
Member Beeman, I just appreciate all the comments. I appreciate the increasing number we're seeing of them and the wider array of people responding with comments. I appreciate that they're taking the time and the effort to do so. Thank you.
Member Hemmons.
Member Hemmings, I appreciate the comments and look forward to further discussions regarding concerns that were raised.
Board Member Bickerman?
Member Vickman, I too, appreciate all the comments, and reading them, and putting them to, the board for, conversations. Thank you.
Being heard from the board, I, Board Member Doyle, move to accept the November 21st, 2023 rulemaking hearing report.
Vice President Shin, second. Board Member Beaman, yes. Member DeMarmor, yes. Member Hall, yes.
Member Hemmings, yes.
Lauren Joyce, yes.
Member Patil, yes. Member Vickman, yes.
Rulemaking hearing report for November 21st, 2023 is unanimously approved. We will now review proposed temporary rules to consider for adoption with staff member Melvin.
Thank you, Staff Member Eldon. For those of you on the phone, this is going to be mailing C. This is related to Division 41, short-acting opioid antagonist. This temporary rule would temporarily amend emergency department labeling requirements pursuant to legislative mandates of 2023 House Bill 2395, 2023 Senate Bill 450, and 2023 Senate Bill 1043, related again to short-acting opioid antagonists. This would be effective January 1st, 2024. And I will now turn it over to Staff Member Davis for additional comment.
So Staff Member Davis, again, for those on the phone, this is discussion item C is the temp rule, and then you will also see the exact same language in mailing E, which is the permanent rule. So in October, you may recall that the board adopted amendments to some existing rules in Division 19, 41, 43, 44, and 139 related to naloxone by utilizing the newly defined term of short-acting opioid antagonist instead of naloxone, which was a directive of 2023 House Bill 2395. And it also, in addition, the rules for pharmacies, dispensing practitioner drug outlets, correctional facilities, community healthcare clinics, and charitable pharmacies were amended by incorporating the labeling exemption that applies when a prescriber personally dispenses a short-acting opioid antagonist in the form of a nasal spray pursuant to 2023 Senate Bill 450. So since then, I thought I had caught it all. 2023 Senate Bill 1043 requires hospitals and other specified facilities that provide substance use disorder treatment to provide to specified patients upon discharge or release 2 doses of opioid overdose reversal medication and necessary supplies to administer the medication. While no rule writing is required by the board for enactment of 2023 House Bill or Senate Bill 1043, we have received feedback from health systems that have conveyed this feedback via OHA. They were doing rule writing related to these rules for facilities to dispense this, and they felt that there's some amendments to our rules would just be helpful in the effort of trying to be as clear that we don't want to stand in the way in any way of dispensing naloxone. We have some proposed language for you today. So this is your first proposed review of, or the first review of the proposed rule language. And so we'll just scroll down and I will show you where the changes are. So 855041 6410 is emergency department distribution. In paren 1, it states a practitioner or associate practitioner with prescriptive authority in Oregon who is a member of the hospital's medical staff may dispense an emergency supply of drugs to a patient examined by them or by an associate practitioner, subject to the following requirements. And in paren D, we are just adding that exemption that we added in the last rulemaking packages you saw about labeling. So they will not, if this is if the practitioner is personally dispensing a medication that does not, or not a short-acting opioid antagonist, it does not have to be labeled because of Senate Bill 450 2023. So we're just putting those exceptions in paren 1D and then in paren 1E. So and then in paren 11, just making it super clear that we are not standing in the way. Yeah, keep going right there. And anyway, nothing in this rule is intended to restrict or conflict with House Bill 2395, Senate Bill 450, or Senate Bill 1043. The law does use the language notwithstanding any other provision of law, so it is in the law, but we thought we'd be just extra careful and make it abundantly clear that nothing in this rule is meant to conflict or restrict. The other one is an 855-041-6270, and that's about institutional drug outlet pharmacy prescription labeling. Again, just that blanket and paren 8 statement that nothing in the rules intended to restrict or conflict with those 3 bills that passed the legislature last year. And that's all I have. Back to you, President Doyle.
Your presentation. Now go around to ask if there is any board discussion, member by member. We begin with board member Joyce. Do you have any concerns with this temp rule?
Board member Joyce, it looks clear to me at this time. Thank you.
Member Hall,
Member Hall, I didn't have any comments.
board member Doyle, I do not have any concerns. Board member Chin,
Concerns?
member Patel,
Board member Patel, no concerns.
member Beeman,
Remember, Beamer, no issues.
member Hemmons,
Member Hemmons, clarification, this is new?
staff member Davis, is this new?
A lot.
Can you please clarify the question?
Board Member Hemmons, is this a new rule?
No, the rule is existing. We are proposing a few amendments to it to comply with these new legislative mandates.
Board Member Hemmons, so in small A, line 13, where we're changing shall to must. And in B, shall to must, is that to comply with? Okay.
Staff member Davis, upon previous board direction, anytime we open up a rule, there's certain things that we've been asked from the board to fix. And any instance of shall is changed to must. It's clearer language and it is the preferred rulemaking language within the state instead of using shall.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
Member Vipperman,
Member Zipperman, two things. I had the same question about the must. So I have the questions about must versus may. And I also have a question about, it says the prescriber, is that the prescriber at the hospital or is that the prescriber, the pharmacist?
staff member Davis,
Staff member Davis in paren 1 in the lead-in, the practitioner or associate practitioner who has prescriptive authority as a member of the hospital's medical staff may dispense an emergency supply of drugs to a patient examined by them or by an associate practitioner, subject to the following requirements. The prescriber, I believe, is referring to the practitioner or associate practitioner with the prescriptive authority in paren 1. I'm not sure what your question is about may. We don't do any cleanups with may. We only do it when it says shall.
And that, so the prescriber may be a pharmacist or maybe a prescriber within the hospital. That was my question, so thank you for asking that. And then the other one, and I agree, sometimes we don't, okay, there's been talk about this may must thing. But here it says the hospital staff may dispense. Now we're saying the prescriber must offer. Is that how it's written? Okay. That was my question. I think just wanted some clarification so that it's clear to the licensees what this is referring to. It's not clear to me, but I'm a technician and won't be the one that is doing that. So
Staff member Davis, it's talking about that the hospital staff may dispense, they may actually give a product to, they have a choice to, they don't have to, they could, but they must offer the patient the option of being given a prescription where they can take it to a pharmacy of their choice. So they could dispense it internally and they must offer a prescription.
member Beeman,
Remember being, to try to clarify, if they choose to via the may and 1, if they choose to do that, then they must do the Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. If they do, then they must.
They don't have to be a one, but if they do, if they choose to, then the others are required.
Staff Member Davis, at some time in the future, we may be revising Division 41 for clarity. Today's modifications were just to address the directives of the Senate bill and not really change the meaning or any other language.
Member Doyle, are there any other questions, or concerns? Yes, Board Member DeBarmer, I see you on my checklist to go next. Go ahead, please.
Board Member DeBarmer, I was wondering when we would get to 1043, because there, the house, the bill 1043, because hospitals must, there's hospitals must, and hospitals don't must do that stuff ever. So, I was trying to understand if we actually had to have some rule that allowed a hospital, when they're discharging, they don't have a pharmacy there to give. It says you must have a retail outlet license to discharge, to give a patient a drug to go with them. In the language we were just looking at. In the inpatient language, in the inpatient pharmacy language, if a drug goes with a patient, it indicated that you have to have a retail drug license in our rule.
I believe that's what paren 8 was added for, was to make it clear that it's notwithstanding any of the provisions of this new law.
Okay. Public record. And I felt like that's what it was intended by putting that broad language in there. I just wanted to make sure, because it is a really different place for hospitals to have to give somebody something they may not be doing. That may not be part of their process. So, okay. So that's period intended for that. And if OHA writes rules, we'll come back to this. If we need to write rules, we'll come back to this. This is just for a placeholder. The moment if
We believe that this rule that will not need additional rule writing, but if there is additional rule writing needed, I'm going to guess that the legislature is probably going to tackle this topic again in a short session, and so we may need to be doing something at that point, and we'll wait for board direction or legislative mandate to do such.
potentially we would have a reference to a House bill in perpetuity until forever.
We'll change it to the actual statutes once the statute numbers are assigned. Yeah, it just takes, remember, up to like 2 years for them to do that. Yeah.
That's my fault. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Member Doyle, are there any other questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none. And there have been no amendments offered. I, Board Member Doyle, move to adopt temporary rules OAR 855-041-6410 and OAR 855-041-6270 to be effective January 1st, 2024.
Board. Jen, seconds.
Remember Beaman, yes.
Remember DeBarmer, yes. Member Hall, yes.
Okay, Board Member Emmons, yes.
Member Joyce, yes.
Remember Patil, yes. Remember Viverman, yes. I'm not on there, so do I.
Board Member Griffin, yes, you get a vote, you know, I have written it on my form.
Let's shut it down.
Already.
Thank you for that discussion. We will now move to proposed rules being considered for adoption of staff member Melvin, beginning with Maylene D as in Delta.
Thank you. Staff member Melvin, I apologize. Board member Vipperman, I don't know why you got cut off on that last one.
You're already done with me.
No, we're not. Okay, so for mailing D, this is related to divisions 19, 25, 41, and 139 for pharmacist, certified Oregon pharmacy technician, and pharmacy technician, administration of vaccines. This again related to 2023 House Bill 2486 and 2023 House Bill 2278. Which would permit a pharmacist to administer an influenza vaccine to persons 6 months of age or older pursuant to the directives of the bill 2278, and permit the technician to administer a vaccine under the supervision of a pharmacist pursuant to House Bill 2486. And this rule would be effective again January 1st, 2024. Back to you, President Doyle, for discussion.
We'll move to board discussion on D as in Delta. We begin with board member Hall.
Board member Hall.
And come back to me.
Board member Doyle. I don't have any concerns with our rules and support them as written. Board member Chin.
This is board member Chin. I was just reading the part about, removes requirement for pharmacists to give vaccine information statement to patient and ensure it was read by or to the patient, and alternately requires pharmacists to ensure patient. Where is the education on the vaccine given?
Staff member Davis, can you help?
Sure. I have to find the rule number. 855-019-0280. Paren 3 says a pharmacist who administers or supervises administration of any vaccine must. And then paren D addresses the ensuring the appropriate VIS is provided to the patient or legal representative. And paren F is advise or counsel on the therapeutic values, content, hazards, and use of each vaccine.
And I'm sorry to read every line of the rule. Are there right person, right place, all the 5 rights that we do it in other, and in nursing when we're going to give somebody something? Is there something similar in your rules for the 5 rights to make sure that the patient understands, the pharmacist knows that that's the person? I'm bringing it up because of an experience that didn't have any of the 5 rights. And so I'm just curious about that before I say, yes, everything looks great.
Are you looking at something?
You have to say, can you tell me your name? Can you tell me your date of birth? Can you tell me, there are 5 steps. And so I just want to, I think that's part of the safety of doing something like a vaccine. And I don't know if that's specifically part of the process when we all do vaccines.
So staff member Davis in paren 3E, perform verification prior to administration that includes but is not limited to prescription order accuracy verification, which is where pharmacists check right patient, right drug, right date of birth, right dose, all those sorts of things. Vaccine product accuracy review. Those are the 2. That's where that's addressed in this rule.
And in the process of the pharmacy tech doing this, pharmacist does all of this and then assigns the pharmacy tech to just do the physical. Scene. Okay. Okay, I have no other questions.
For persons on the phone, there were some head nods, staff member Davis and if I am correct, board member DeBarmore. Member Chin, have you completed your,
Incomplete, sir.
next we have member Patel,
Comments?
member Beeman,
I have nothing to add.
member Vipperman,
Board member Vipperman, does it say in statute that nations are allowed to do this? Is it, technicians are allowed to do this, or does it say we are able to do this vaccine?
Staff member Davis, 2023 House Bill 2486 authorizes a pharmacy technician to administer a vaccine.
To, 8 persons younger than 7, right?
I don't remember the age range.
That was my,
Yes, it didn't address that, and in the current law, the way the law is written for pharmacists, it's 7 and over. It's changing to 6. But with these rules, we left it at 7 because there isn't clear guidance, because both the 2278 and the 2486 were being written at the same time. And there was never a meshing of the two, even though it was in the same lines of law. And so we don't know when the final rule, the final law is published, what exactly that would look like, but we felt like it was the safest to assume that the legislators were looking at the language as it is in law right now, which is 7 and over, because it just says like a pharmacist or a pharmacy technician may administer a vaccine too. And so they're inserting for pharmacists the 6 months. We didn't want to assume that the assumption of the legislature was 6 months for technicians, so we based that on the language currently in law.
thank you, that was my only,
board member DeBarmore,
Board member DeBarmore, I don't have anything. This particular.
member Joyce,
Board member Joyce, this is a pretty, I mean, it's broad, it's broad and specific at the same time, it's possible. Just wanted to be clear, so January, on line 33, January 31st, 2024, the protocols that are approved by OHA ends, and then February 1, we go to follow the statewide drug therapy management protocol or CDTM agreement starting February 1st. And that's the chronology of the rule, right?
Staff member Davis, so we cannot motion on this until we discuss the next package about Division 20, because there would be a, we would remove the dates from this rule if the board does not move. Does that make sense? The board does not move the Division 20 to adoption. So we will have to hold on motioning this till after that discussion completes.
Right, because board member Joyce, yeah, it needs some more clarity on that. And then, of course, the age issue that board member Berman had brought up. 7 or 6, which would, thank you, that's all.
board member Hall, you've asked to come back to you.
Board member Hall, I don't have any comments.
Staff member Melvin,
I was just going to say, so, we do recommend that we don't motion on this, and just whenever you're ready, we could move to the Division 20 rule that talks about the vaccines.
I will now move to the Division 20 vaccination.
Hold on. Board member Hammond, so. Because we're not motion on it, we don't get to comment on it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you guys were done commenting. I'm sorry.
Did I go? I'm sorry. Did I? I did? Oh, sorry. It was something, a question that I had as I was staring at it.
You wish to ask that question?
Yes, yes. Board Member Hammond, just a clarification, when it says, to administer uh, a vaccine, no, second paragraph, well, yeah. To administer a vaccine, does that mean that, a COPT pharmacy tech will now be able to administer any vaccine under supervision? Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, wait.
Member Doyle, there was a affirmative head nod from staff member Davis and staff, board member DeBarmore. Pete. Member Evans,
I'm good, thank
uh, board member Doyle speaking, so we will wait to motion on, package D as in Delta, and, we will now move on to the conversation about Division 20 vaccination protocols, protocol compendium, which is, package Delta 1. Member Davis.
No.
Staff member Melvin.
Mailing D1 and the protocols mailings D1A through D1V add vaccination protocols to the protocol compendium effective 2/1/2024. Back to you, President Doyle, for discussion.
Board member Doyle speaking, so that I understood, conversation as to why we're holding off on motioning, for, package Delta. Can you please repeat that? Sure. And how it relates to Delta 1?
So impact mailing D, vaccination, vaccinations. In 855-019-0280, paren 1, inserts the dates. And so it says prior to prescribing, administering, or dispensing a vaccine, a pharmacist for an A until January 31st, 2024, must follow protocols written and approved by the Oregon Health Authority. And then in paren B, it says effective February 1, 2024, must follow the statewide drug therapy management protocols that are what is in mailing D1. So if the board does not want to move forward with D1 and wants to leave the protocols in the hands of OHA, then we would need to go back and amend paren 1A and B to remove the dates so that the pharmacist could follow either.
Thank you for the clarification for all stakeholders. So beginning with conversation, with myself, I don't have any concerns with regards to, the D1, package overall, including, all sub, packages, for example, D1A, D1D, etc. Board member Chin.
Member Chin, I agree that I don't have any comments. I don't have any difficulty moving this forward, but I found it fascinating in the comments written about another state or maybe more than one state who doesn't have every single vaccine written out in the compendium. And I'd like to, once we get moving through just having OHA stuff being under our rules, that is maybe a future board discussion or goal, possibly just to keep some of the wording and all of the pages out of our rules if they don't need to be there.
Michelle.
Board Member Patel, I completely agree with Board Member Chin's comment. I also read and I know why can't we have adopt one protocol to cover all the vaccine? And I think couple of state, I think Virginia Board of Pharmacy, they have like that. With our protocol and I think the first page, I don't see it here, but anyway, we have like so much prescriptive and so much rigid rules on our current protocol compendium, so which I don't agree. I think we are doing this for more than a decade. Have one protocol, just, not so much prescriptive. And let the clinical pharmacist or clinical pharmacist, let them make the professional judgment about all the vaccination. It shouldn't be too much prescriptive. Thank you.
Member Beaman?
Remember, Beeman, have no, questions about this, and I understand this process, but I do echo a lot of board member Chen's thoughts of how we move forward with this in the future.
Member Evans?
Member Simmons, so are you telling me that I didn't need to pay to see a doctor to get travel medication? I could just go on to my pharmacist? So I have a question about scribing. Let's say you have like tetanus, right? A tetanus shot. Can a pharmacist give a tetanus shot? Okay, so let's say I had a nail or something that I stepped on, right? And I go to the pharmacist, does diagnosis come into play there? They
Member
just
Doyle?
does
No.
require diagnosing in order to give me that tetanus shot?
Don't believe it's, I don't believe it's preventative, situation.
Okay.
I, have made the assessment that one has stepped on the nail. But regardless, my responsibility would be, since tetanus vaccination is usually repeated every 7 to 10 years, that I would make the assessment if I'm giving the tetanus shot too soon. But if the patient was requesting a tetanus shot, they are entitled to it because it's a routine vaccination that we have through our lifetime.
And board member Hennings, thank you for that. So because vaccines are preventative, doesn't require you to diagnose someone because it's preventative. So prescribing does not necessarily require you to diagnose in order to administer, correct? Thank you.
For the public not in the room, there were some affirmative head nods from other board members. Board member Vipperman?
Member Vipperman, I have.
Member DeBarmore?
Board member DeBarmore, I also called out the comment related to looking at alternate, in this case, it was an alternate state example that appears to streamline the vaccination process, and that was intriguing to align with the potential goal of efficiency and proving what these look like. I think it's worth looking at. Not to hold this up though, to move these forward, but definitely a potential movement in processes.
Member Joyce?
Board Member Joyce, I understand the intent of having this in rural vaccination protocol. And hearing the comments, I mean, I look forward to looking at that option as well, but for this one I'm seeing in front of me, it's clear, I see the intent, and I'll push this forward.
Member Hall?
Member Hall. Fine with it. I do agree, though, it would be nice to streamline, sure.
Thank you, board, for your feedback. Staff member Melvin and Davis, may I motion for this package, and then we go back and motion for D1?
Sure.
Thank you. Having heard conversation from the board, I, board member Doyle, move to adopt proposed amendments in OAR 855-020-0300 to be effective February 1st, 2024.
Board Member Chin, second.
Member Beaman, yes.
Member DeMarmor, yes. Member Hall, yes. So, Board Member Hemmons. I. Okay. I'm Board Member Hemmons. Yes.
Member Joyce,
Board Member Joyce, yes.
Member Patel, yes.
Board Member Viverman, yes.
it is unanimously approved. Now, circle back to package D as in Delta. Having heard, board conversation, and no amendments had been proposed, I move board member Doyle move to adopt proposed rules OAR 855-019-0270, OAR 855-019-0280, OAR 855-019-0290, OAR 855-025-0024, OAR 855-041-1040, and OAR 855-139-0600 to be effective January 1st, 2024.
Board Member Chin, second.
Member Beaman, yes.
Member DeMarmor, yes. Member Hall, yes. Board Member Hemmons. Am I allowed to bring something up, or have I lost my opportunity?
Board member Doyle, yes, the motion is already on the table.
I would like to oppose.
Board member Joyce,
Board Member Joyce, yes.
board member Dell,
Board Member Patel, yes.
member Rippleman.
Member Viverman, yes.
Motion passes with board member Hemmons opposed. We now move on to package Delta 2. I hand it over to staff member Melvin or staff member Davis for the introduction.
Thank you, staff member Melvin. This is related to Division 41, drug outlet requirements. This adds general requirements for an outlet and requirements for personnel, drug procurement out of state pharmacies, prescription requirements, prescription validity, operating a laboratory, and prescription transfer requirements for drug outlet pharmacies to be effective on March 1st, 2024. Staff member Davis, I will turn it over to you.
Based on a public comment of the rules received, after they were noticed, board staff do not recommend the adoption of OAR 855-041-1019 related to drug procurement. Staff will bring further revision of this rule to a future board meeting. Based on public comment of the rules notice, board staff have made 3 minor corrections to 3 different rules, and I was going to go over those just real quickly so that I drew it to the board's attention. In 855-041-1010. Just the header has been changed to instead of parentheses RP and IP. That was me just trying to be really quick, and I forgot to catch that to actually spell it out and say both retail and outlet, retail and institutional drug outlets. And 855-041-1105. Ren B, yeah, there on line 156, removing address. It was duplicated twice in the rule. The rule applies to practitioners, so it's been reworded for clarity. It now states the full name and contact phone number of the practitioner, and in the case of controlled substance, the address and Drug Enforcement Administration registration number of the practitioner. We didn't need address in both the non-controlled and the controlled section of that rule. And then in 855-041-1115, in paren one, changed his or her, which was language that was derived from federal law. Some of you might have recognized that language, and to be more neutral, to use their. So those are the only 3 minor corrections I have. Back to you, Board President Doyle.
Board Member Doyle, thank you for your presentation. I will ask for a board conversation regarding 855-041-1010, starting on line 8. Are there any questions or concerns about that section only? Board Member Beeman?
Sorry, I'm jumping again, not specifically on a line sort of change there, but I do. Anybody,
Sorry, you have questions.
starting line 3.
So I invite conversation with regard to this whole
section.
this
Okay.
whole second.
I want to rehash and reopen up the 90 days in PPC. Microphone, I would like to discuss the 90 days in PIC. We've had this conversation a few times. I know I like the in-state and out-of-state to align, and I see this as already happening, whether in the rule or not, it's happening as a result of the conditions currently. So I may be the only one that thinks this needs a reevaluation, but I'd like to state that I think it needs a reevaluation, that item 1 at all times, and further down a similar statement in the out-of-state pharmacy at all times should.
A different section.
And I believe it is, but this is where it starts here. And so I would like to look at a different option.
Board Member Doyle, my understanding that line 18, where it says report of change in pick within 15 days, is that where you?
Okay, with the 15 days, I'm talking about line 13. 1, at all times have 1 pharmacist in charge who is normally present. The at all times seems to be something that's hard to meet right now. And there's gaps in a PIC, whether we write it in the rule or not, due to a plethora of issues in pharmacy right now. And rather than maintain and further rules that tend to be punitive, to try to reassess this, an option for this, rather than at all times, either the allowance of a 90-day window or some other, whatever we come up with. And I may be the only one that thinks this, and I want to not gloss over this because we heard a lot of comments about it.
Staff Member Davis, do you have any advice?
Staff Member Davis, I just want to point out, so the board, your options today, because this went through rulemaking, would be either to adopt the language as proposed in paren 1 or not adopt, which would default it back to the way it is right now. We could take board discussion and go back and bring you a new proposed rule to modify this at a future board meeting. But today we're not going to be able to accomplish like putting in a gap or something like that. So your option is, do you want to update the language? I think this was just modernizing the language to reflect what it looks like in other sections of rule, not changing the intent of the rule. Or we can keep the current language. So the board would just need to make that decision if you want to adopt the amendments to 1 or just leave 1 as is, and then give us direction to come back to you at a future date with something different.
I think 1 in its entirety, and I understand this is not a change we can make today and move forward. This is a substantive change. I think since we started looking at these rules, we've seen and the issues are highlighted, that that there are gaps in PICs. There's I will not vote for this as it is now, and I get that that means leaving it as it is currently in our rules, which is not significantly different. I think though that rather than moving forward and feeling the pressure to move forward, the rule that is putting us further in limbo and putting our licensees in a harder place is not something I'm comfortable with at this point. So if it means I vote no on this and it's fine, this language needs to be addressed, whether it's now and we restart this process for this section of the tool, or whether we have it on the agenda or the pipeline to get it addressed. I don't want the at all times PIC. I would like to reevaluate that. And I understand the work we've done on these rules. I am not trying to negate that, but I don't want to move rules forward that I'm in disagreement with.
Board Member Patel.
Board Member Patel, I'm in agreement with Board Member Beeman. Yeah, this language is supposed to change in my mind, or in my opinion, supposed to be changed like yesterday. We are seeing the effect right now. And I do remember in the strategic planning meeting, and I told you, I asked you that whether we are going to provide the PIC class every day or every week to meet the certain PIC requirement. And I do remember that we said, well, that's not going to be applied because we are going to change the language that now in-state is also going to have 90 days for the PIC gap. I do remember that. So I don't feel comfortable moving forward with this language just because we have to get done with this package. Like I'm going to say no. And we have to, this one is a pressing and major issue than most of the other rules, because we are seeing the cases and those cases are increasing day by day. Thank you.
The floor is open for any other comments on 855-041-1010. Board Member Hemmings.
Just so I understand what, Board Member Patel and Lehman are referring to, are you saying that you would prefer not to have it in line 113? Say at all times, what would you prefer?
This is Board Member Beeman. And it's something that will come later in this package, but in the way our rules are written currently, there is an allowance for out-of-state pharmacies to have a 90-day period that there's not a pharmacist in charge, a designated pharmacist in charge. They're still allowed to fill prescriptions for Oregon patients. So I don't see why and seeing more and more. And as our rules currently are now, that is not allowed for in-state pharmacies. There always has to be a pharmacist in charge. Given the situation that pharmacy is in now, this rule feels like it's impossible to follow at times. Whatever reasons. Is it ideal to say there should not be no? But in order to get people into the position, trained, find someone, all of that, it is taking time at this point. So I would prefer at all times, but that's not the reality we live in pharmacy right now. So I think having a 90-day window similar to what is allowed for out-of-state pharmacies would be more feasible.
Staff Member Davis.
Staffmember Davis, just a reminder, historically, in August of 2022, the board gave direction for staff to modify the rules to eliminate the 90-day gap for out of state and to make it this language for everybody. Okay, so that's what has gone through rulemaking. I realize that times have changed, direction may have changed, and we are hearing what you're saying. So just an FYI, like I'm happy to reopen that discussion and have a new discussion about PICs and gaps or not gaps, how long the gaps would be in the future. But these rules were drafted based on previous board direction.
Thank you, this is board member Bean. I understand that and I understand the shift, but I also, we've seen the shift and the reality is it can be written down, but it may not, it's not gonna happen. And I think taking a different approach and a different lens and trying to find alternate avenues to patient safety rather than just using a hammer and trying to force things is a better approach in my mind.
Member Patel.
Member Patel, and just to extend to board member Beeman's comment, and it's also put like outlet at the hard spot. It's just because now you don't have a pick, so would you close or you open without pick, and now you are going to get the fines because there should be a zero pick gap policy. So either way, patient safety or that will compromise. So I would definitely say we have to relook these rules as soon as possible, and we have to give a 90 days of the grace period. So at least the outlet will be open. At least the patient will get the medication. Thank you.
Board member Ripperman.
Board member Bickerman, so who's in charge in these 90 days? That you guys want to not have somebody in charge?
If I may, I'll curtail language because there were conversation on that because we're getting into more policy making and we need to make a decision on whether we approve these or not, as had been presented at the rulemaking hearing. So I do appreciate that's an ongoing conversation. If that's an ongoing conversation that we would like to have, then I would endorse you to vote no on 1010. Is there any other board member Chin?
This board member Chin, I just want to clarify what we're doing. Let's do this. So if we vote yes, all we're doing is changing the blue things that you put in there, the 4 little line items. So,
No,
okay,
here's the,
so
this is the rulemaking notice filing. These are all the changes with track changes.
Board member Emmett, I'm confused. What are we doing?
remember DeBarmore.
We're not allowed to have a discussion about it. We're just voting to say if we agree with the changes.
Board member Doyle, we have gone through several different iterations for the package. It went to rulemaking hearing. We received information back from the public. The board staff has made some non-substantive changes. They are requesting that we actually do not vote on 1019 because there are substantive changes that they would like to make, which we can't do in this session. So we have the choice either, well, we have the opportunity to reflect on the rulemaking hearing feedback that we've gotten, but we cannot make substantive changes to this. We can either thumbs up, thumbs down, approve the changed rule at hand.
Member Hammond, so a thumbs up does not mean that this goes into effect, or is it already into effect and all we do is change in language? I'm confused.
Remember Doyle, the motion would be that it will be in effect as of March 1st, 2024. We have our current set of rules that regard with relation to Division 41 and operations of pharmacy, and we've looked to amend those rules. if we do not accept any one of these rule sub packages, if you will, for Division 41, then they won't go into effect on March 1st, 2024.
Board member. Board member Hammond, so how could we not, in order, okay, so either vote up or down. If you vote down, then what happens?
If you go down the status quo, whatever stricken language may be here on the screen presented behind you, then would stay in effect. I can't remember verbatim what that might be. There could be some unintended consequences that I can't speak to at this time.
So board member Hammond, status quo right now is a pick is required to be present at all times. This doesn't change that.
Staff member Davis.
Staff Member Davis, the current rule reads, each drug outlet pharmacy must have one pharmacist in charge employed on a regular basis at that location who shall be responsible for the daily operation of the pharmacy. The pharmacist in charge shall be indicated on the application for a new or relocated pharmacy and for pharmacy renewal registration. So if you do not vote to adopt the changes, that language will stay in rule. And not that exists today, and not the modern, not the updated language that's in bold and underlined black on N1.
Staff member.
Member Emmons, so the language that exists there now isn't the same. It's not that's a significant change. Because the language that's there now that says employed at a regular basis at that location who shall be responsible for the daily operation reads a little bit differently from saying at all times.
Member Doyle, yes, and these rules have been discussed by us on several previous occasions. And this is what we ultimately decided to move to rulemaking hearing. Now we have rulemaking hearing results and we have the opportunity to make non-substantive changes, which is what Staff Member Davis has done. If you believe after rulemaking hearing comments and you do not agree with the new text that's presented in front of you, then you would expectedly vote no on this particular package, and we remain with the language that we have presented on the screen.
So board member Hemmings again, so how would we get it to go back to the place of discussion where the parity out of state versus in-state would be relitigated again? How does that happen? Or that we can't go there at all at any point? It's either we vote for this or we don't, but there's no way to go back to that parity.
Board Member Doyle, yes, we have, as a board, we have a decision to make, just thumbs up or thumbs down with this package. If whether you vote thumbs up or thumbs down, you can ask, or the board can come to consensus that we will revisit this at a later time and give staff direction to do so.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 855-041-1018. Are there any comments specific to this section only? Hearings, Board Member Emmons.
Remember Hemmings line 156, I just wanted to find out why did they remove a class? Question, I'm not that it should be there, I just wanted to know the rationale.
I will pause and put a pin in that when we get to that section.
Oh, we're not there? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm just asking for anything in 1018 that's lines between 45 and 87. Hearing and seeing none, we will skip If I may, section or rule 1019, which is line 88 through 95, because staff is recommending that we do not adopt that. We move on to line 98, which is rule 1060. Any comments with regards to 10.6 on 1060 up to line 131? Board member DeBarlo?
Board member Thornmore, there were multiple comments, regarding this language and, I feel there is, I think you've missed something here pretty substantial, and there's still some conflict in the difference between dispensing and delivering into Oregon and services that may be occurring within, as we've been calling them, non-resident pharmacy. I would not feel, I'm not comfortable with the restriction or just the limitation to just the dispensing, delivery, and distribution. It's created a lot of confusion. Clearly, it's created a lot of confusion. And secondly, the time required to get a pick. I absolutely don't agree with not having any type of gap. So I think this section needs some additional, it's not written.
Member Patel?
Remember Patel, I am agreement with board member Devarmar. So yeah, I'm going to oppose and I'm not in agreement. And that was not intent when we said you want similarity between out of state and in state. That means both supposed to get 90 days. Take care. I know that was not the consensus. That's me. That was my intent. That's me, my opinion. No, I'm not. This section, whole section is not ready. And look at the comments we get. We get plenty of comments. And even in the statement, it says like, yeah, it's going to affect the public safety, whether you believe or not, it will. Thank you.
Pausing for any other comments on 1060? Not seeing any, we move to 1105, lines 132 to 126. There's a question on the floor with regard to removal of address on line 56 from board member Hemmings. Can you please readdress that, staff member Davis?
Yes. Hold on just a second, let me find my notes. It's a duplicate, yeah. Of course, I can't find my notes at all. Did I do? No. So the main thing was this, that the address was duplicated in line 156 in the first half of the rule, and then also required a second time, the second half of the rule. The address is only necessary when it's a controlled substance and should have only been included in the second half of the rule. So we were striking address out of the first half and making it just clear that this whole rule is about the practitioner and not about anything else.
Other questions on rule 1105? Beeman?
Board member Beeman, it's specifically called out in 190, E item E, that it's, I'm sorry, it's under the controlled substances, but I want to make sure that at one point the discussion was that for the controlled substance, it excludes a signature stamp or digital signature. And I don't see it spelled out above, so I just want to clarify in line 169G, a valid signature is not voiding the digital signature.
Rachel, you were there. So
She,
scroll,
she's talking.
yes, about signature, but then scroll down and paren C,
Sorry, yes, in parentheses.
193, and paren G, manually signed specifically excludes a signature stamp or any form of electronic or digital signature unless permitted under federal regulations.
I think it may be. No, I'm sorry, it's two, it's for the facsimile. A lot of highlights under. The facsimile is manually signed. I think that a lot of software that prescribers use, and I expressed this before, use a digital signature that is still. You can make sure it's from, there's other methods on there to make sure it's from the right office, and so I think that that is too restrictive.
Member Doyle, I don't see any comments with regard to 1105. We will move on to 1115. That is line 257 to line 286. Member Beeman.
Board Member Beeman, we had several comments on lines 210 and 212. And
So that's back on 1105.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, yeah.
We had several, we're, okay, my issue, and I'm visibly frustrated right now, we are glossing over a lot of things that had comments. We asked for comments for a reason, and it's hard to gloss over that and have the option be thumbs up, thumbs down, and I'm not trying to minimize that, I know we need to get through this. But this is our last chance to look at this. We have been encouraged and have sent rules through rulemaking hearing that we've never even laid eyes on before in order to get comments. These are not them. I understand that. I understand we've seen these before, but it's very, very discouraging to say, well, we've looked at these a bunch. This is where we're at, and not actually take the comments that we're asking for, that we are finally seeing a lot of and a lot more of. And we're not even taking those or assessing the impact of them. Because it's, I understand the substantial change. I understand we have to start the process over and pull these out, but I myself would rather do that and be proud of what we're putting out there than figure out the unintended consequences later. And so that's why I'm having an issue with, oh, well, let's talk about this or that. So unless you've aligned the comments with the rules line by line, if it's not even addressed here or some other way of being brought to our attention, we're making things harder when we hear from licensees and other stakeholders that we might make their lives harder when we could avoid that and find another.
Member Doyle, I am speaking as president and trying to administer the meetings. I am not being restrictive on, I am not personally being restrictive on what you can do. I am just defining what pathways that we have as a board. That when we get rulemaking hearing comments, if there needs to be further policy discussions, then we'll have to put that down. I think this is an appropriate time to acknowledge we have lots of concerns from stakeholders that have had input. I'm not ready to move this rule forward. I'm not going to vote for it. And then we have the conversation about policy again at a later time. But at this juncture, we only have an option to say thumbs up or thumbs down. Are we moving this forward? Board Member Vipperman.
This is Board Member Vipperman, and honestly, he asked if anybody had comment, you commented, and nobody else commented, and we moved forward. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. That is exactly what we're supposed to do. And so,
No chance, sorry, didn't get through all my notes and follow the pages.
well, I mean, he said, okay, we're gonna go through this. You're the only one who comment. He waited, and then we went. I mean,
I was trying to go through. Well, basically, sorry.
But there's this is
Permission to speak.
Board Member Chin,
Board Member Chin, there's so much. So what I'm love and see, I think what I've found in meetings, listening to meetings, and then also trying to keep up in meetings, that we don't always remember what we did before when we're doing it again. And so how do we make note of, because we're gonna have to come back and do this again. I thought that we're gonna move this forward. Where are we making the note? Because we have all these stakeholder comments in this meeting. We're not gonna meet again for 2 to 4 months on this again. Have those after I've done my life in 4 months, to have all of that meshed together again, isn't necessarily gonna be perfect. So how do we keep spirit of what we want in comments alive when we do recipient?
Board Member Doyle, I appreciate those comments, and I'm sure that staff is taking those into effect. I don't know that we'll be able to resolve that issue at this time directly in conversation right now.
But just something to think about is can, when we do these, can we have the public comments back to us when we're looking at doing this again? These are the comments we received, or this is the gist, because a lot of them were all the same. This is the gist of what the public comments were, just to remind you, board members and new board members, because we'll have a new board member by the time we do this. This is what we got. This is what we had. How would you like to move forward? I would like to see something like that to help keep my brain moving this forward.
Board Member Beeman, they live in our iPads. You can go back to the past meetings, and because I look at old language of old rules to see what was, yeah. But
I realize that.
you want like a summary.
I would like a summary. I, like many of you, have a very, 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 very full-time job. I don't live in your world. It would help me to have some of that summarized and me to remember. So this is what the public, not this, what was, and yes, that's the gist of what I
Board Member Hall,
Member Hall. Yeah, I agree. Like, could we just have maybe even, there was like lots of comments on 212, line 212. If there was like a little asterisk or a link saying go to this, and then it would like direct us to all the information regarding that line or something.
thank you. Staff Member Davis, you have a comment?
Just a reminder that I used to provide the board with the Word documents, with each comment, like linked to the rule where the comment was, and I was instructed not to do that anymore. So if the board would like me to do that, I can resume doing that. I already created for a year. The thing is, I already create the documents. It is not extra work for me. I have them right here. I can email them like in a second, I have to create them because that's the way I look at the rules to prepare for discussion of like, we recommend not adopting, we recommend changing something minor. I have to get all the comments into the right spot to be able to digest all the information. The other thing I just wanted to remind the board on this particular rule, because we are also going to be motioning to repeal all of Division 19. If we were not to adopt this rule at all with any of the changes, you would lose the elements of a prescription. There will no longer be a rule that requires the elements of a prescription. So I might ask the board consider taking a look at the black line version, what was put through rulemaking, and that there may be lines of new language that you don't want to adopt, but that you may be able to adopt the rule, but amend it prior to adoption. My understanding and previous board meetings is not adopting language is not substantive, but adding language that was not there would be substantive. Board Member Chen.
Board Member Chin, I would advise something that, so other boards rely on the elements of a prescription for how they do their rules in there. To their practice. So like the Board of Nursing relies on your rule for all of those elements in a prescription for our rules. So I would recommend that we set that in there somewhere.
Just historically, for some reason, the elements of a prescription were put into the pharmacist division. And so we were moving them into the outlet division because that's really where they should be. And that's why when we repeal all these pharmacist rules, this was a very important piece that needed to move over to 41.
It's just to FYI to people about what that means.
There any comments on Rule 1115?
Board Member Clemens. Is 212 in the rule that we're talking about right now?
212 was in the rule that we were trying to wrap up. What question do you have?
We need to have that there, listening to the voicemail a second time.
You could, Board Member Doyle, you could choose to vote no on this package. There had been several comments from stakeholders that were received on that. And again, that's your prerogative to whether you think that it's in the best fashion for pharmacy practice and protecting the public of Oregon.
Board Member Hemmings, I'm still trying to understand if I vote no for this rule, the majority votes yes, the rule then what? What happens?
Remember, Doyle, the rule becomes active on March 1st, 2024. And the stakeholders, the outlets, particularly because we were talking about Division 41, would have to follow this set of rules. We as a board could provide further direction to board staff to then reevaluate and potentially after rulemaking in November of 2024, February, May of 2024, then you might be able to change the rules again. Board Member Hemmings?
Board Member Hemmings, and if there's a majority that votes no, you will then have an opportunity to really go through this in detail and change language if so.
I believe that you will have that opportunity with either pathway. It's either one, continuing to work on drafts that we've had up to this date and incorporating rulemaking, hearing comments, or we have new language in the rules that are adopted today, effective March 1st, that can then be further edited based on your direction to staff.
Board Member Hammond, so this is not a new rule. All we're doing today is we're looking at the changes in the language and saying yay or nay. What I think is happening is we're looking at this, we're saying, hey, we don't really like some of this language anyway, regardless, you know, it's language that has not been changed or existing language. And I'm struggling with trying to figure out how do we get that addressed. Does anyone understand what I'm saying?
Staff Member Davis, can you, from a staff perspective, comment on the management internally with how we would move forward? If we were not to approve this, how we could move forward to May versus if we did approve it, how would we then move forward to May? That.
I'm not sure I understand the question since both are being asked about May.
May 2024 is the next opportunity to have a rulemaking hearing.
So if the board adopts this language as proposed, it would be done unless the board gives staff direction to come back with further modifications, which we could show you potentially at February or April to go to May. The board does not adopt this language. it reverts back to what is currently in rule. The board would not have any rules about the requirements for a prescription. And we would bring you back language at a future board meeting, same path. I mean, potentially February, maybe April, depending on how quickly we can write things. An alternative that I just want to reemphasize yet again is you could vote to adopt the rule with a few amendments and choose not to adopt certain lines of the rule. So you could say we adopt 1105 as amended. And like, so let's pretend the less stuff on line 212, but which is about reading back the voicemail second time. You could choose not to adopt that section of rule. Does that make sense? So you could do a simple like at this moment, like we can motion this separately and not as like the whole package. We could do one by one. If it fails, then we could reopen discussion and say, are there certain lines that you do not want changed? You don't want to adopt the amendments to, and then the board could re-motion that way. Does that clarify your options?
This is board member Chen. I love that. It's like when you're in Congress and you veto a line item, we're vetoing line items right now.
Right, you can either choose to keep or not keep. What we can't do is change the language. Does that make
makes a lot of
sense?
sense.
Remember, Hammond, you're all very welcome.
Board member Patel, so, but then we just say like, okay, the line 212, we don't want to change that, we approve everything, but then you're only going to focus on 212, that's the line you're going to focus on next time?
That's right. So we have the potential to strike line items.
Yeah.
But still move forward the
Mhm.
gist of what does make sense.
Mhm.
The caveat that we're still probably gonna come back to, because we can't strike, I don't think. The PIC needs to be there all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
I
about, so
don't-
how that's going to
I
work?
don't think right now correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't think we can strike that. I think that that's something that and again, if I'm wrong, let me know, but the things like where we heard a lot of concern about the prescription things, we can strike those line items. Move it forward with those strikes.
My concern is, this is board member Patel, what my concern is like, when we are going to come back and then have to talk about this, I have the same concern as member Hammy has. What is that pathway and how that look like?
Like how we ask the board staff to do. So. And what we finished here today, moving forward.
They're going to tell like board staff, let's talk about 855-041-1010. That's what,
Board member Hammond, but it won't be until when?
exactly.
This is board member DeBarmore. That's part of the agenda planning process. If you would like something on the agenda, you send it to the president and you send it to executive director. And they have a full agenda planning meeting before. Maybe you don't know that, but yes, you do. They have a full agenda planning meeting. As we're going through these meetings, anytime someone says, it would be great if we talk about it, that's sometimes when there's someone's like, wait, hold on, we need to make sure I hear consensus that everybody wants to talk about it. Cause just because you say you want to talk about it, because oftentimes I say, I want to talk about it, no one else wants to talk about it, and I get skipped over. And so it has to be the consensus that that at least the majority say, yes, I agree, we want to have that as a topic. And then it goes on the themes, and then the president, whether it's still Ian and the executive director, make the determination of where does it fit in the agenda. Does that make sense? Yes, and it's going to happen at the end of the meeting today. Not tomorrow. They've noted it. It's noted. It's noted that this part wants to talk about it. I think they probably heard there's multiple people who have said, yes, we want to talk about this. If it goes forward, great. If it doesn't, we've ruined some other things that will have to have be fixed. But but there are pieces in here that multiple of us have said we're not ready for this yet. And he's heard the excitement in our voices, so he can judge at that point where that priority is, and the president guides that. He's heard the excitement in our voices and the passion in the conversations. You get to decide. If we're not happy and it doesn't come up quick enough, take it back to them and say, hey, what happened? You there? Okay.
Agreement.
Member Freeman, to move forward, I would, like, playing who I would recommend, I don't want to move, it's not a motion, but I would recommend to strike lines 210 and 212 from this rule packet and,
Numbers, I'm sorry, I don't remember what your show has, I found that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is the number.
okay,
To do that.
number 1105,
She's gonna delete it. Or 111s, just,
four will be item
I can't.
I
it's
and I are
119.
1 and 2 under little b.
I should ask them. Board President Doyle, is the board asking me to open a Word version of this so we can start?
I'm trying to strike the line item.
Yeah,
Trying
do we,
to do the-
is that what you're asking me to do?
Well, I'm trying to just do whatever we need to do and suggest that this is, and then however everybody else feels about it, maybe we don't have to. I just think we heard a big impact could happen from these two little lines, and I don't want that to happen. So if we strike them, which is what I'm trying to suggest, and we can move forward with that being not a major change, and we can send this through so that we aren't in limbo with the requirements of a prescription. That seems like the least stressful path at this point. If everyone else wants to send these through as it is, that's fine, and I can vote no. Just trying to, I hear the recommendation and I'm trying to throw that out on the floor to get it moving in there.
Member Doyle, may I have staff recommendations?
Staff Member Davis, if you could just scroll down to 4B so we can see on the screen what is being discussed. What we will need to do is during a break, maybe, pull up a Word document so that we can strike those two lines before you motion, because we would have to be able to show that. We would also, need board consensus for how, so
And is this the only one? Because they.
is that the only language that you would not want to adopt in this rule that was modified? So we heard 4 little b.
Board member Chin, a little bit further down, I think there were many comments about the brand medically necessary language, which I wasn't sure I understood all of that. I don't know if you all remember, there were some comments about how that was gonna be confusing and there were gonna have to be multiple phone calls. So I'm not sure what the confusion was about that.
Staff Member Davis, that is language currently in rule. It is very prescriptive in terms of what our boards would normally do, but we were just trying to move the current language over without changing a lot. But there were comments definitely about why do you have this list? It's unnecessary. What's currently in rule?
Mr. Barmore?
Board member to Barmore, there is a major change in number 7, and it is a significant change. And it's the manufacturer.
Let me look at
Correct.
There's a major change in that.
There's 2 number 7s in the final.
Right.
That's why. Goodness. What? Are you in the right one? Hold
Don't,
on, right here, 7.
Don't agree
Another-
with
another 7.
having that as a brand or part of the
Renumbered.
brand medically necessary language in our rule. Leave it at that. I don't know how others feel. So that could be the rest of the last meeting I missed, but.
This is OARD.
11. 7.
Sorry. This.
23, 22, 23.
Staff member Davis, we did discuss that that was being added and that was in the rulemaking summary that we're adding manufacturer due to ongoing issues. Retool.
Will suggest that we, break now. It's 2:37. Yes, Staff Member Davis.
Have we completed discussion on this rule? Because if we're going to break, I need to make sure that I've got everything we need so we can come back.
And I'm suggesting that we need to take a break to just reset ourselves, and for, us to talk offline, if you will, with how we're going to move forward with the continuing conversation, and for us just mentally to reset. So we'll, reconvene in, 12 minutes at, 2:50.